everyone, hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel, and if you don't know me, I'm Sarah. I'm a mum of two. I have a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old, and yeah, I blog and vlog about all things pregnancy, parenting, lifestyle, travel, all sorts of things. So if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. But I'm going to be talking about the symptoms of silent reflux today. I get a lot of messages and emails and things like that, just a lot of contact from people who've obviously heard my story with my son Lachlan and asked me what the symptoms were and how we knew that he did have silent reflux. So our sort of backstory is that we noticed probably around 4-ish weeks that something wasn't quite right with Lachlan. He was very, very screamy and sensitive and seemed in a lot of pain, so it took a while. But I remember one night I was sitting with my dad about 2 in the morning and we were passing him back and forth between us, just not knowing what to do, and someone mentioned on one of my videos reflux, and I was like, well, it can't be reflux because he's not sick all the time. And then someone said no, silent reflux. So then I thought, okay, I'll give it a Google and see. So I literally read all these symptoms and I ticked off every single box for Lachlan, and it was such a relief but so awful at the same time to think that he did have this thing. So yeah, I thought I would go through all the symptoms because every time someone messages me I just feel so bad for them and I just want to help. So that's what I'm gonna do. The reason silent reflux is called silent reflux is because it's often not noticed. It's not really got anything to do with the fact your baby's silent, obviously, because they scream all day every day, but it's more that the symptoms go more unnoticed than proper reflux. Not proper reflux, that's the wrong word, but reflux where a baby's actually physically being sick. So the first one is irritability, and that can cover everything from crying, whining, screaming, just general sort of fussiness and unsettled behaviour. And it'll last for varying periods of time. With us it lasted quite long periods of time, and also a colic. So there's a lot of talk about colic and silent reflux and what's what and whether they both exist and things like that. But I found with colics, we went through that with Lila, that was very specific to certain times of the day and it only lasted a couple hours, whereas silent reflux was just all day every day, and it just went on and on and on, and you would get very, very brief sort of 10-minute periods and things of settledness or your baby being distracted, but then it would go straight back to the screaming, and it would come on very suddenly. That's another symptom as well. The crying does come on just like as if you flicked a switch, and yeah, it's horrible. Babies with silent reflux can often arch their backs in pain and stiffen up, and they often have quite a hard tummy. Lachlan had that. They might pull their knees up, a bit like colic, into themselves because they're in pain from wind and just generally all the acid and everything. They'll be difficult to settle and they will seem distressed for quite a lot of the time. Like I said, there will be moments where they're distracted or they might manage to get to sleep for a bit, but it will be sort of 80% of your time your baby will be very, very unsettled and sad. They might appear colicky or windy. Again, it's very hard to distinguish, but Lachlan had very, very bad wind and he sounded like a grown man at one point. It was really, really horrible to see him in that amount of pain. This is a big one, and we still kind of have issues with this to this day, is that they can be very clingy, very oversensitive, very sensitive to noise, don't like being left alone, can be easily upset, and they're often considered to be high needs or demanding if it's not diagnosed that they have silent reflux. Most of the time babies with silent reflux will also have feeding issues, and we noticed that. I was trying to breastfeed at the time. I am still breastfeeding now, but in his first month I had to exclusively express, and then at a month he started latching. But I noticed before we started breastfeeding and he was on express milk through a bottle, he fussed a lot with the bottle and he pulled off it a lot and just seemed like he was gulping down too much, and he just didn't seem comfortable with feeding at all. And then when we started breastfeeding, it was the same sort of thing. He needed complete, and this is a weird one as well, and this one still to this day happens, he needs almost complete silence to feed, or a darkened room, or just very, very calm atmosphere. Otherwise he's very on alert and pulls off a lot. And nowadays it's not so much. I think it's become more of a habit, but in the beginning I think a lot of it was to do with the pain, because he was trying to feed and it was hurting him, and he'd pull off and he'd fuss and he'd get really angry and he'd be pushing me away, and yeah, it was really, really tough. And then the more they come on and off, it kind of just, it's a really bad cycle for you as well as for them, because obviously you get in pain with them doing that. And then another one on the feeding side that we had problems with as well is Lachlan would tend to, when he was on and feeding, he would feed and then he'd start gagging and spluttering because he was just not sort of managing it going down, I guess, or it was just coming back up, and we had a lot of problems with that. And you might end up spending a lot of your time comfort feeding, because sometimes, especially maybe more so with bottles than breastfeeding, I'm not very sure because I don't know the ins and outs, but with the bottle feeding I think the milk stays down a bit better because it's not as quickly digested. So I think with silent reflux babies, when they've got a lot of acid and they've got a lot of sort of acid coming up when they don't want it to, feeding all the time keeps it down a bit more. So we did go through periods of time where Lachlan just wanted to feed all day every every day, because I think at that point in time maybe that was helping him before we got him on medication and things like that. In terms of sleeping, this was a big one. This was a very specific area where we had a lot of problems, and it's what really started the alarm bells ringing, along with the pain he was in. But silent reflux babies find it very, very hard to sleep, especially on their backs lying down, because it's just not a comfortable position for them. Acid's coming up, and when they're that little they can't move away, or they can't lean up or sit up and like go down. They're just lying there. And I think Lachlan used to, you could smell it on his breath when he was lying down on his back, like the acid coming up, and it was just, he would burp and hiccup and scream, and yeah, he would basically not nap all day every day. I had all these ideas in my head of what maternity leave would be like and what I'd be able to get done and things like that, but I genuinely spent months and months on end just holding him and trying to get him to sleep all day every day, because it was like if he didn't sleep he would get worse, like emotionally rather than like physically, but then he just couldn't because he was in so much pain. So it has got a lot to do with obviously the way they're lying. We got wedges, we got our bedside cots that we could have like that, and nothing seemed to make a difference. We had a sleepy head which made him feel a lot more like, when we eventually did get him to sleep, if you put him into that he seemed to stay settled and not wake up, whereas if you just tried to put him in an empty cot or an empty Moses Pasco, whatever, he'd immediately be like and he'd be like feeling around and he'd be really scared. So yeah, it was really, really tough, and that's what the symptoms kind of boil down to. They find it very hard to sleep on their backs, they prefer to sleep upright, they find it very, very hard to self-settle, they seem to always need someone to be holding them and comforting them to sleep. They often take very, very short naps. Like I would be happy if Lachlan did 20 minutes, whereas Isla, when she was younger, I'd be waking her up after 2.5 hours, but I literally got into the mentality of as long as he does 10-15 minutes, then at least it's something. And it's crazy how different it can make your parenting journey. They often don't manage to get into that very deep sleep. They're kind of in that very light sleep that they can easily be woken from. Lachlan, I brushed my hair once and it woke him up, but he was just always on edge. A few other just symptoms, just sort of really random ones to finish off with. Your baby's tummy might sound very gurgly and very fizzy, which sounds really weird to say, but that was exactly what Lachlan's tummy sounded like, and I'd never heard it before. The silent reflux cry is a cry you will never forget. It's a cry you will not have heard from a baby until you know it. It's very hard to describe. It's like it basically pierces your soul. It is so horrible. It's like colic times 1,000 million, and it just destroys you. One that's quite funny but not funny, because everybody always comments on how serious Lachlan is and how his expressions are really, really hilarious and crack everyone up on Instagram, but that has been mentioned as being a little bit of a symptom where silent reflux babies tend to be quite serious and quite focused and basically a bit miserable, bless them. And the last one, which would probably lead on to another video I'm going to do all about signs and symptoms of your baby having a cow's milk allergy, is sometimes with silent reflux babies as well, you get a lot of explosive, very strong smelling nappies, and we found that a lot with Lachlan. I could maybe count on one hand how many times Isla had an exploding nappy. Lachlan, it was like 4 or 5 times a day. So yeah, I'll leave you on that really pleasant note as my last symptom. But hope this has helped a little bit. Hope it answers anyone's questions who might think their baby's got silent reflux. I know it's a lot to take in, and I know it's a lot of very general, not very scientific specific symptoms, but it's just one of those conditions that isn't really very well known or understood. So you will come across doctors that refuse to accept it, but just if you are convinced, then health visitors I found were more open to the idea sometimes than doctors. And just keep going until you do find help, because it is so hard, and I can't put into words how difficult it is and how much it pushes you as a parent. So get all the help you can. But thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, which is probably the wrong word to say for a video like this, but yeah, see you soon, bye.